Long ago, in a time before written history, the world was ruled by a pantheon of powerful gods. These gods controlled the elements, life, and death itself. Among them, Nyr'Thal stood as the most mysterious and feared. Unlike the other gods who were known for their grandeur and dominion over creation, Nyr'Thal was a god of shadows, secrecy, and forbidden knowledge. His domain was the space between life and death, the eternal silence that lay beyond mortal understanding. Nyr'Thal's followers were few, and their rites were whispered about only in the darkest corners of the world. Legend said that he existed not in the world of light, but in the shadows between worlds, waiting for the right time to reveal himself to the living. The gods, fearing the power of Nyr'Thal, decreed that his existence should remain a secret. They erased his name from the annals of time, hiding all records of his worship and silencing any mention of him. They warned that any attempt to summon or seek out Nyr'Thal would bring great calamity to the world. But as with all forbidden things, curiosity grew. Centuries passed, and humanity forgot about Nyr'Thal. Yet, deep in the heart of an ancient, forgotten temple, a scroll was discovered. Its writing was unlike anything ever seen before. The scroll described a ritual that could summon the god of shadows. It was said that whoever could complete the ritual would be granted knowledge beyond human comprehension, but at the cost of their soul. A young scholar named Darius, obsessed with uncovering the secrets of the gods, came across this scroll during his travels in a ruined city. As he read the ancient words, a sense of dread crept over him, but he was undeterred. Desiring power and forbidden knowledge, Darius decided to perform the ritual. On the night of the eclipse, when the veil between worlds was thinnest, Darius ventured into the heart of the temple, where the ritual was to take place. The air around him grew cold, and the shadows seemed to grow darker, more alive. As he chanted the incantation, the ground beneath him trembled, and the air thickened with an unholy presence. Suddenly, the shadows around him began to move, swirling and coiling like serpents. A deep, eerie voice echoed in his mind. "You have awakened me, mortal." But at what cost? Darius felt his heart race. Was it truly Nyr'Thal, the forbidden god, who now stood before him? His eyes burned with curiosity, but also fear. The shadows began to take form, shifting into a dark, humanoid figure. It was neither fully solid nor completely ethereal, but a being of shifting darkness. From within the shadowy figure, glowing eyes pierced through the darkness, and the voice that followed was like the whisper of 1,000 winds. "I am Nyr'Thal, god of the spaces between life and death. You have called me forth, and for that I offer you a choice." Darius, trembling with both awe and terror, asked, "What do you offer, God?" Nyr'Thal's voice was cold, yet oddly calming. "Knowledge beyond your understanding, secrets that no mortal should ever know. But in exchange, you must forfeit your soul. You will live forever in my realm, between life and death, neither truly living nor truly gone." The scholar hesitated. The power, the knowledge, it was all so tempting, but the price, eternal imprisonment in a shadowy existence, was too high. However, Darius, driven by his insatiable hunger for knowledge, could not resist. "I accept," he whispered. But as soon as the words left his mouth, something unexpected happened. Nyr'Thal's form flickered, and for a moment, it seemed as though the god was trapped in a cycle of his own creation. The shadows began to warp and distort, as if they were struggling to contain something. "You dare to bargain with me?" Nyr'Thal's voice now sounded more like a growl, filled with rage. Darius's eyes widened in shock as the god's form began to flicker and fade. The room shook violently, and a terrible darkness began to swallow the temple. The shadows grew longer, twisting into grotesque shapes, and the very air seemed to suffocate him. Then, just as quickly as it had started, everything fell silent. When Darius regained his senses, he found himself alone in the ruins. The shadows had vanished, and the temple had returned to its crumbled state. The god was gone. But there was one thing that remained: Nyr'Thal's curse. Darius now found that he could not leave the temple. No matter how hard he tried, the shadows seemed to follow him, clinging to him like a second skin. His mind began to unravel as he realized the full extent of his bargain. Nyr'Thal had not granted him the knowledge he had sought. Instead, the god had taken something far more valuable: his humanity. For years, Darius wandered the temple, trapped in a timeless existence, tormented by the god's whispers. He had been cursed to live forever in the space between life and death, the very thing he had sought to control. But there was something more. Whispers of Nyr'Thal's true power began to spread. The world would soon forget Darius's name, but the legend of the shadow deity would not die. Every so often, a new seeker would come, lured by the ancient scroll and the promise of forbidden knowledge, unaware that the god's curse still lingered, waiting to claim yet another soul. As the story of Darius's fate spread, it became clear that Nyr'Thal had always been more than just a god of shadows. He was the guardian of a deeper, more terrifying truth. The true secret of Nyr'Thal was not merely his power to grant immortality or knowledge, but his control over the very fabric of existence itself. Those who sought to summon him were not merely searching for power. They were unwittingly part of a much greater plan. For Nyr'Thal's ultimate goal was not to rule the living, but to trap them between worlds, to weave a web of endless seekers and forgotten gods. And so, the legend continued, with each new seeker unknowingly feeding into Nyr'Thal's eternal game. The truth was out there, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the next soul to make the same fateful decision. This mythological story combines suspense with divine intrigue, highlighting the consequences of seeking forbidden knowledge and making deals with powers beyond comprehension. It keeps the audience guessing about the true nature of Nyr'Thal and the price of immortality, while weaving a story that keeps them hooked from start to finish.